If you follow the news from Brazil, you've seen it 1,000 times, right? It feels like the president and Congress are just locked in this permanent, high-stakes fight. But what if I told you that all this friction, this constant battle, isn't a sign that the system is broken? What if it's the system working exactly as it was designed? Okay, let's jump in and try to solve this political puzzle. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the constitutional tug-of-war. Then, we'll add what I'm calling the Brazilian special ingredient. After that, we'll open up the presidential toolbox, see what happens when coalitions work or don't, and finally, we'll get to the big one, why this whole game matters. So let's start with that constitutional tug-of-war. Now, I know conflict sounds like a bad word, but you're about to see how this system, like a lot of democracies, is actually built for a certain amount of conflict on purpose. I mean, it's the question behind so many headlines, isn't it? A huge reform bill gets stuck in Congress. The president issues a decree, and Congress immediately tries to shut it down. The budget negotiations feel like they're going to cause a government shutdown. This isn't just random political drama. It's the direct result of how the whole system was set up from the very beginning. And that setup is based on this classic idea, checks and balances. You've probably heard the term before. The whole point is to make sure nobody gets to be the king. The president, the executive branch, and Congress, the legislative branch, are given their own unique powers specifically so they can push back on each other. So all that fighting, it's really a feature, not a bug. And you can see here, each side has its own arsenal, its own set of weapons for this fight. The president can veto laws he doesn't like, or issue what are called provisional measures, which are these really powerful decrees that have the force of law right away. But Congress isn't helpless. They can vote to overturn a veto. They can launch these massive investigations known as CPIs. They control the purse strings through the budget. And of course, they hold the ultimate trump card, the power to start impeachment proceedings. This right here, this is that tug of war in action. Okay, so that's the basic blueprint you see in many democracies. But now we need to add the special, uniquely Brazilian ingredient, the one thing that completely changes the flavor of the entire dish. And that is the problem of having so many political parties. And when I say so many, I really mean it. Just look at that number. We're not talking about a handful of parties. Brazil's Congress regularly has lawmakers from over 30 different political parties. Just let that sink in for a second. 30. That kind of fragmentation, that many voices at the table, it changes everything about how you govern. And here's the unavoidable mathematical reality of that situation. It is literally impossible for a president's own party to win a majority of seats in Congress. It has never happened. So every single president, from the moment they're elected, starts out in the minority. They can't pass a single law by themselves. This reality gives birth to maybe the most important concept for understanding Brazilian politics today, presidencialismo de coalizão, or what we call coalitional presidentialism. You can think of it as the practical solution to that fragmentation problem. Since you don't have a majority, you have to build one. You have to create a coalition, an alliance of different parties to get things done. And that process, that's where the real game of politics is played. So if you're the president and you absolutely must build a coalition just to survive, how do you do it? Well, that brings us to what's inside the presidential toolbox, the art of the deal Brazilian style.
It pretty much boils down to three main tools. First, you hand out powerful government jobs. We're talking cabinet ministries, the heads of big state-owned companies, you name it. Second, you negotiate budget amendments. This is the classic pork barrel spending, where you give lawmakers funds they can steer to projects back in their districts. It makes them look great to their voters. And third, you use your power to control what gets voted on in Congress, making sure to prioritize the bills your allies care about.
But this isn't a one-and-done deal. As these political scientists point out, this exchange has to be ongoing. You know, a coalition isn't like a stable marriage, it's more like a very fluid business partnership. It needs constant attention, constant negotiation, a constant flow of political favors to keep everyone happy and on board. Okay, so that's the theory of how you build a coalition. But what does it actually look like when the rubber hits the road? Let's check out the results, the huge payoff you get when a coalition works, and the serious peril you face when it all falls apart. And wow, when you look at the data, the difference is just night and day. If a president has no real coalition, they barely pass any laws. But just by building a basic presidential coalition, their success rate jumps by 37%.
And if they manage to build a really disciplined partisan coalition, boom, a massive 64% increase in success. The lesson here is crystal clear. Stronger coalitions get more done, period. Now, let's flip it around and look at the defeat rate. Basically, how often a party is on the losing side of a vote. Unsurprisingly, the opposition parties lose a lot. Even the president's own party back in 2019 got defeated over 5% of the time. But now, look at this last bar. The parties of the Centrone, this is a big, powerful block of parties in the middle, their defeat rate was less than 1%. That tells you everything. When they're organized, they are the kingmakers. Nothing gets through Congress without their approval.
Okay, so we've seen the rules of the game, the key players, and what winning and losing looks like. But why should any of us care about all this complex political maneuvering? Well, it all comes down to one crucial concept: the price of stability. To really get this, we need to understand the difference between two words that sound similar but mean very different things: governability and governance. Think about it like this. Governability is having the political support of the shareholders, in this case, Congress and the voters, to be the CEO. Governance is about being a good CEO, actually knowing how to run the company, manage the budget, and execute plans effectively. You can be the best manager in the world, but if the shareholders won't back you, you can't do anything. You need governability first. And that is the key to this whole puzzle. All this messy, transactional deal-making, it's not just politics for the sake of politics. It is the fundamental, necessary process for achieving governability. It's about building the foundation that allows a president to actually run the country, pass a budget, or respond to a national crisis. So, we're left with this really fascinating question. This whole system of coalitional presidentialism is the engine that keeps Brazil running, despite its massive political fragmentation. It provides a path to stability. But does all that horse trading, all that distributing of jobs and money, come at too high a cost? Is it a brilliant practical feature that keeps the country from falling apart? Or is it a bug that encourages backroom deals and corruption? That right there is the puzzle at the very heart of Brazilian democracy.